Hello, give me some pop in. There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 25 of the Rocket Punch Show. We are legally allowed now to get our discount on car insurance, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Cameron here. And joining me as well, we finally figured out the tag we're going to use for him, the Dark Lord of Hype himself, Darth Turner, a.k.a. Seth. Seth, what is going on, sir?
Not much, man. It has been... we have officially entered October. It is one of my favorite times of the year. I got Halloween decorations up.
Okay, yep.
I've got
Always
spooky
exciting
game streams going all the time.
Okay.
I've got not eating candy because I'm watching the waistline, you know. But
then how is it really Halloween if you're not eating candy?
Okay, so here's the thing. There's a lot to Halloween, and candy's a big part of it, I will admit. However, I do have to say that I kind of think of it like giving presents, right? Like, there are people who are about giving presents,
okay,
right?
Okay.
And there are some people who probably are not that big of fans of giving presents. Giving presents is a big part of Christmas, but it's not the meaning of Christmas, right? There's countless movies about that. I'm kind of fighting for the same thing as far as candy with Halloween, right? Like, it's trick or treat, right? So I'm just doubling down on tricks because at the end of the day, I would rather troll something than to give it diabetes, right? So that's my strat, right? My strategy is to create situations of cacophony and chaos. If you don't believe me, go watch the D&D stream we did last week where I think I was just an agent of chaos the whole time.
Okay,
so
yeah.
That's my personal preference.
Good point.
But I'm not going to say that candy, like, I'm not saying candy's bad. I'm just saying, like, candy comes with inherent risk. I would rather have an ice cream cone than a Snickers bar, personally. So, like, I'm going to invest my calories in an Oreo Blizzard, not in candy bar. Okay. Unless it's Reese's in the freezer. Freezer Reese's?
Oh, do you like that too?
Dude,
Man.
I would fight someone for some Freezer Reese's.
I do not like Reese's particularly unless they're in the freezer.
Yeah.
After
that is the correct way.
They're delicious.
That's like being like, oh, I only like room temperature water. I'm like, what? No, we have evolved to have cold, crisp, refreshing water. Don't talk to me about, well, it's easier on my tummy. No, you are incorrect. It is cold water. Cold water. Look at this. Water? Look at this. Oh, green screen. Sorry.
Green screen, yeah.
It's cold. It's cold.
Well, you know what else is easy on your tummy is the news this week. Luckily, we did not have a lot of crazy news this week, but we still got a lot of stuff to talk about, including World of Warcraft Shadowlands getting delayed, CD Projekt Red working overtime on Cyberpunk, Fall Guys Season 2 is coming, and a whole lot more, guys, because this is the Rocket Punch Show, your southern source for all things gaming, geek, and more. You can catch us every Tuesday on your podcast service of choice. You can also listen to us live as we record the show each and every week for you right here on twitch.tv/rocketpunchlive. We want to give a special shout out to everyone who's tuning in on Twitch and joining us in these conversations. We always love having you guys over here hanging out with us, giving us your thoughts on the topics we're discussing. If you want to find out more of the content that is made here at Rocket Punch, make sure you head over to rocketpunchgo.com. That is your one-stop shop for all things Rocket Punch. All the videos, podcasts, streams, and more are right there at your fingertips. Also, if you want to be a part of the Rocket Punch family, it's very easy. Make sure you just join our Discord there. In Twitch chat, we'll have it posted there. And of course, if you're listening via podcast services, we'll have it in the show notes for you. So definitely check them out and join us on Discord. Hang out with us off the mic. If you want to help support us, there are many different ways you can do that, guys. The easiest way, of course, is to review us on your audio service of choice. You can also follow and share our content over on social media. You can see our tags at the bottom of the screen. I am at Rocket Punch Go. You can find Seth over at Darth Turner on Twitter. But if you want to go even... go ahead. I'm sorry, Seth.
Oh, no, I was just saying, and Twitch. I'm Darth Turner on Twitch as well.
I know I'm not. So I make things complicated because, that's just what I'm about. Maybe I should change that. Well, that's thoughts for all.
You just gave me PTSD back to the days of choosing URLs for everything Rocket Punch related, and boy, it was rough, man. It's rough.
Be good that you don't have to think about that. Well,
yeah.
I'll think about that now. We'll figure that out. But guys, if you want to go even further beyond, you can definitely do so by becoming a subscriber here on Twitch, getting access to exclusive emotes, as well as our exclusive post show here of the Rocket Punch show that we do immediately after for subscribers only. Or you can head over and become a patron over at patreon.com/rocketpunch. Get access still to the post show in audio format, as well as a bunch of other goodies that you're not going to find anywhere else. Speaking of, let's give a special shout out to our Rocket Punch producers. These are the people over at Patreon and Twitch supporting us at our highest tier. So a special thank you to Jossie M, Sam S, Jeremy M, Stephen S, Adam C, and all of our Twitch subs over at Twitch. .tv/RocketPunchLive, because that's where we're at. Man, I had a brain fart there.
Listen, if you don't say the URL at least 7 times, then did you really do the housekeeping? Have you kept the house, or did you just cram it all in the closet?
You're making valid points here. You definitely are.
Yeah, it's honestly, on twitch.tv/RocketPunchLive, we like to make sure that the URL twitch.tv/RocketPunchLive is mentioned at least 7 times, because that ensures that your experience on twitch.tv/RocketPunchLive is up to the standards that twitch.tv. I'm done.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep going. Why didn't you keep going?
I would do all 7, but our listeners, we got video game news. We've got, for the first week in a long time, Megaton bombs have not dropped.
They haven't, and it's been good. I've been like, oh, thank goodness.
We're finally through the hype zone of September. We're in October. It's basically too late for hype to happen. That's incorrect. Hype can happen anytime, anywhere.
Anytime, as we've seen a couple of times this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely don't jinx us on that.
And actually, before we kick off into this, I don't know. This is pretty hot. So like, of course, we're recording on Sunday as we always do, live at 7 o'clock on twitch.tv/RocketPunchLive. Got it. But
there you go.
I don't know if you saw this earlier, but Jeff Keighley was talking to Aaron Greenberg, the head of I believe marketing for Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they were talking about I think the Game Pink initiative stream is going on right now for breast cancer.
Yes.
Charity stream. Super awesome.
I would have participated in that. I should have paid more attention. But yes, that's
awesome. Okay. But he apparently dropped that there is a blog post on Monday, quote unquote, from Xbox. And the last blog post they dropped was them buying Bethesda. So
there are still some people are still floating rumors around that they're trying to buy Bungie. So maybe
Bungie and Sega, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, maybe we'll see if that is true or not. We'll find out and see. But the one thing that we do know is true, to kick things off here in our news, guys, number one, Shadowlands, World of Warcraft Shadowlands, shocker, has been delayed here. Reading specifically from World of Warcraft's official Twitter account here. Since this message isn't too long, I'm gonna read it in full for you guys here. An update on Shadowlands. We wanted to let you know that we're delaying the release of Shadowlands to later this year, and while we're still in the process of determining the right new date to launch, we felt it was important to let you know about this change in plans as soon as we could. This was an incredibly difficult decision for the team, and as we're eager to get the expansion into your hands as you are to play it. But ultimately, we feel it's the right decision for the game and for our players. Over the past several months of testing, we've made significant progress iterating on and polishing the core features and gameplay of Shadowlands. We're at a point where the zones, the campaign, the level up questing experience, and the story we have to tell are essentially ready to share. We're excited by the Covenants at the heart of the expansion, and it's been a thrill to see Torghast take shape in a fun, new kind of WoW experience, thanks in no small part to your input. However, as everything started to come together and we've been listening to and building upon your feedback, it's become clear we need a little more time for additional polish and to balance and iterate on some interlocking pieces, particularly those related to the endgame. Shadowlands is one of the most intricate expansions we've yet created, and while we've made great progress, the challenge of tuning the endgame was compounded by the team having to work from home. Blizzard has a commitment to quality. We believe Shadowlands will be something special, and we've heard from many of you who feel the same. We need this extra time to ensure that Shadowlands lives up to its full potential. In the meantime, we're excited to announce that beginning October 13th, we will be releasing the Shadowlands pre-patch, which lays a lot of the groundwork for the expansion and includes our revamped character leveling, new player experience on Exile's Reach, and a host of new character customization options. And once we get closer to Shadowlands' release, you'll be called upon to defend Azeroth again against a resurgence of the Scourge during our pre-launch event. Thank you for your support and passion and your continued help and feedback as we head towards the finish line. We'll see you in Shadowlands soon. John Haidt, executive producer of World of Warcraft. Seth, I know we've dabbled in a lot of MMOs in our storied gaming career. Have you been keeping Shadowlands on your radar? Does this do anything for you? What are your thoughts
Cameron,
on this?
I've told you the story before. I am cursed. It is a lycanthropy that I have, which for those who do not know, it is werewolfism. The common tongue for that. And every 2 years, a WoW expansion comes out, and an event occurs called pre-patch. And during that time, I transform away from the Darth Turner that you know and you love, and I become the Darth Turner of 2013 with living in living in Azeroth and running sound effects through Discord. At the time was TeamSpeak. Really getting hyped as we ride up on ICC, ready to take down the Lich King. So I'm going back into that zone. This is definitely Shadowlands. They're not quite saying it, but it seems to be very, very inspired. There's a lot going on with Death Knights. There's a lot going on potentially with Arthas, being one of the biggest characters in WoW that's also dead. Now we're going to the afterlife. I'm sure he's going to turn up at some point. Positive. So I'm super excited to see where this goes. So basically, I'll be playing through pre-patch, and then I'll probably play for a month or two after the game comes out. I have no interest whatsoever in in-game for WoW. I play it, maybe run a couple dungeons or something at the end. But I will definitely fall back into this, just as I did with WoW Classic when it came out. It's a curse. It's a curse, Cameron. The transformation occurs. I just have to do the best I can to live with this curse and make sure that I don't infect anybody else. So if you ever see me out there on Twitter being like, yo, guys, you should come over and play WoW. It's pretty good. Just remember that WoW is basically Heroes of the Storm for me. Just ignore everything I say and don't play the game.
And there you have it. No, I will be the first one to say, like, I don't know if maybe I'll dabble in it. I really doubt it. I'll be honest, I've really been pulled in a lot to Final Fantasy XIV. They've been doing a lot of stuff, and I think that's really been scratching. Again, I like the approach that Square Enix has taken to the MMO genre, where it's very much like, dude, when we've got events, definitely come and play with us. But when we don't, you don't have to stay for the other stuff too. We know there are other games to play. We know we've got other stuff you can do. Go do that stuff, and then we'll be here when you come back. And when you jump back in, boom, you'll have more stuff to do. As opposed to kind of really Blizzard's mantra of like, we want this to be the only game you play. Period. And that's fine. That's fine for some people, but for content creator / gamer who literally jumps between platforms, and I've had I remember having a conversation with Carla from What's Good Games talk to me, like, basically is like, how do you have time to play all these games? I was like recommending these games to her. I'm like, ooh, what do you like? Okay, do this, and she's like, how the hell are you playing all these games? And I'm like, how the hell do you make all these board games? And then we said, okay, and walked away. But I'm excited for Shadowlands. I'm excited to see what they do to kind of shake things up in the expansion. And I'll definitely, depending on how the hype level is when the game eventually does come out, I definitely may give it a chance to check it out. But, delay's not a bad thing. Do you? Yeah, when do you think it'll come out?
I suspect that they would want to get this out before the... Did it say before that, like, did they give a time frame, or did they just say it's delayed?
They did not give a time frame. They just said it's delayed into next year.
I would suspect that it's definitely going to be in Q1. It's in Q1? Remember, this is Activision Blizzard. They are a publicly traded company. Full disclosure, I am invested in them. So I as an investor am saying that better come out, because those the yearly projections factored that game in. And yeah, that's an important game to come out. So it'll definitely be in the first 3 months of next year. In fact, they have that BlizzCon digital stream going on early next year. I think that's in February.
Yes, that is true. I forgot about that. Jesus.
So Jack Wolf of Heart, you've mentioned here in chat that my house is on fire. No, this is actually the year. This is the year 2020. I'm just living in it. But yes, thank you for the notification of that. That would be helpful for me to know. But jumping back to WoW, yeah, I see it as a potential late January, early February. That's my guess. I don't think they want to try and compete with March because March is going to be pretty stacked next year. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. Moving on, next topic up for discussion here. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest of news, and it does have some concerns for me. We'll definitely talk about it for you guys here. But next up on the docket, Cyberpunk 2077 publisher orders a 6 weeks of crunch ahead of launch. This is from your boy Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg.com now, because apparently now that he's there, they're doing all sorts of stuff. I'm going to read here. Polish video game developer CD Projekt Red told employees on Monday that 6-day work weeks will be mandatory leading up to the November release of the highly anticipated Cyberpunk 2077, reneging on an earlier promise to not force overtime on the project. Red, a subsidiary of Poland's biggest gaming company, CD Projekt SA, has been criticized previously for engaging in crunch, an industry term for excessive overtime in game development. The practice often lasts for weeks and can stretch out for months or even years. CD Projekt Red co-chief executive officer Marcin Iwinski, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, last year told gaming website Kotaku that the company would be avoiding mandatory crunch and was, quote, committed to allowing employees to work without overtime. But an account from a CD Projekt Red employee recently, as well as an email to staff earlier this week, indicate that the company hasn't lived up to its word. The employee, who asked not to be named discussing private information, said some staff had already been putting in nights and weekends for more than a year. In the email, CD Projekt Red studio head Adam Badowski wrote that he was optimistic about the state of Cyberpunk 2077, which stars Keanu Reeves, and that they had just sent the game to be certified for release on Sony Corporation's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox. Now, he wrote, it was time to fix the game's many lingering bugs and glitches. There's a bunch more to that article, as you guys can see. I'll let you guys swing over to Bloomberg and read that yourself. Seth, this concerns me. I want to hear what you think first, but this does concern me. What are your thoughts on this?
I think crunch is something that needs to continue to be an ongoing conversation. I think this year's been a really good step forward for a lot of that. Especially with how work has changed in light of like COVID and things during these unprecedented times.
Ooh, there you go.
So it's sad to see this happen. This was inevitable. I think this is the most important game that CD Projekt Red has ever released. If you remember, The Witcher 3 was a sleeper hit. Like, it was a game that came out and did really, really well, but then it really, like, it blew up after it came out, right? Like, the hype meter was nowhere near what it was for Cyberpunk, right, when it first came out. So that has kind of propelled them into this new status of high expectations. So they were basically, I know that they said they've sent it off for cert, so like the game itself is done, but this is going to be the optimizations, day one patch kind of content.
Yeah.
Crunch is a big, scary topic. It's hard for me to talk about it in an informed and educated way because I don't work as a game developer or in games, period. I work, for those who don't know, I am a designer. I'm a digital designer, so I work with websites and digital products as in the product build. So I work with developers and things like that on those kinds of work. But games are a little bit different. There's a different expectation and generally a different level of passion that comes into those. And so I don't feel really educated or honestly qualified to have a strong opinion about this because I know that as bad as crunch is on paper, there are a lot of people. I did this myself. I think when you're young in your career, especially nowadays where getting a job is so tough, like when you have an opportunity, you want to put in 110%, right? You want to show the team that you are committed, right?
Yeah.
And it puts people who who maybe have family or kids, they have priorities outside of work in a weird position, especially when the leadership are those people, right? So they're willing to stay 6 days a week, right? The team feels obligated to do that as well. So it really puts them in a weird position. But then, of course, on the flip side, like I'm a strong believer of if it's, usually it can wait, right? Like there's very few problems that like have to be addressed right now, but it's I hesitate to even say like this is a wholly good or wholly bad thing. I don't want human beings out there to suffer for my video game entertainment product. Like, I think that really sucks. But I also know that the game is not the only thing on the line here. The jobs of those people are reliant on hitting those goals and metrics. If those goals and metrics are not hit, then there's blowback from that. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what you think, Cameron. Where do you fall? I know generally you're pretty anti-crunch, and where are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm generally anti-crunch, and I want to bring Jack Wolfhart's comments here on Twitch chat. He says, "I used to be against crunch for real, but 6 days for 6 weeks. Welcome to the real world. Mandatory overtime is a reality to most jobs that aren't retail or fast food. Everyone has to do it. Why not the gaming industry?" And I kind of get that. I think the general thing is we don't want to overwork our workers in general. So I think kind of trying to stay away from that as much as possible is the best thing forward. I remember I saw this article and I saw Jason Schreier get a lot of heat for this, and people were coming in like, yeah, it's Cyberpunk, they got to put in a lot of work. But reading this, I understood why Jason reported this. It's because of the comments that were made. I remember last year when we were having discussions about, companies like Rockstar and Red Dead Redemption 2 and a bunch of other companies that Schreier, when he was at Kotaku, was like hitting it, boom, 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 like crunch, crunch, crunch. This is a problem we have to solve. And then now, I remember our big articles from Jason Schreier talking to CD Projekt Red, and they were like, "No, we're not forcing people to do crunch. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're 100% committed to making sure this game stays, crunch free, no overtime, nothing like that." And then to come in now, literally weeks away from the release of Cyberpunk 2077, I don't even think you have to argue. It's like one of the most anticipated games of the freaking year. That. Boom! Now, crunch, crunch, crunch. Surprise! They took the word back. And I don't appreciate that. That being said, I know that if workers have to work, if they have to work to get it done, then I guess that's just that's in work that's what it has to be. Because I think some people may suggest or say that, just delay it. Push it over to next year. It's not going to be a problem. I don't have a problem with that either. But don't kid your. I would say I will definitely piggyback off Seth here in saying that I don't. This whole crunch thing. I'm not a business person in game development, so I don't know the full details. But from me looking outside in, my initial thoughts would be, don't kid yourself if you think that just because they delay a game doesn't mean that they're not going to crunch. A lot of the times that just means they're still going to crunch, but now they get to do it for longer because they have a little bit of a cushion, and now they want everybody to work as fast as possible so they don't get into that tight window again. And with Cyberpunk 2077, this is a little concerning for me, especially some of the parts I read in the article about they've released the game to be certified, but now they're going to start working on patches to fix the game. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe the crunch part is just to fix bugs. But that also is what's the state of this game without the bugs? What are these early builds going to be when they go to developers?
Good point.
Beforehand, before the day one patch comes up. And especially this game, I think we'll have to fact check, but I'm almost certain this game was announced in 2013. This is Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy Versus 13 levels of from official reveal to this game actually coming out. We're at 6 or 7 years, and I don't know. The fact that they're still having to crunch to get this game out does concern me a little bit with this game. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. I know that The Witcher 3, when it came out, it had some bugs in it too. They easily rolled them up. CD Projekt Red is very good about keeping those updates going, but still has me concerned. And I'm not going to be shocked if this game slips out of 2020. It's going to hurt me very, very much, but I'm not going to be shocked about it. And if it even if it releases, I won't be shocked if we don't see a couple of bugs.
Yeah.
Potentially some big ones coming into the game when it releases.
Yeah, I mean, they've always been good about that. To answer your question, the official Cyberpunk 2077 YouTube channel has a video uploaded October 19th, 2012, titled Cyberpunk 2077 title reveal.
Oh, God, so 8 years.
Eight
I
years.
would assume that's from the official announcement. I'm sure it's been in development long before that, but 8 years.
Let me go ahead and remind everyone that current-gen consoles came out in 2013.
What?
So it was announced prior to the day that PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were even announced.
Rurutu in chat says, still better than Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 15. You're not... They're about the same. Actually, the remake was announced in 2013, 2014.
Yeah, remake was all right. Remake was the E3 of Dreams. That was 2014, wasn't it? Or 13?
14 or 15. Because 13 was the release of the consoles.
Yeah.
So, little playing around there with some stuff. I digress.
Yeah, I hope that nobody's going to suffer. Like, if it is truly a short term, if there's a term in the product field, it's getting over the hump, right? Like, it's getting past the difficult part. And I think that when you look at the development life cycle of this game, that like the launch is just the middle, right? Like, that's the middle of the life cycle for this game. There's going to be another 2 to 3 years of support as they do DLC and free updates and things like that. So I'm hoping that it's just contained here to the launch and that they're not having to crunch on future content or things that are non-critical to the game, right? Like, I don't want them crunching on cosmetics, even if they're not paid cosmetics. I don't want people crunching on optional content when you should only kick into overdrive for really critical issues. But I digress.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on here to the next story up for discussion here. Marvel Spider-Man Remastered is finally be detailed, and what? Shocker! Peter Parker gets a brand new face here. This, I'm reading specifically from community director James Stevenson over at the PlayStation blog, who kind of detailed a lot of the updates and innovations here with the remaster of this game. If you're watching the video, you're actually watching the trailer they showed, kind of showcasing the ray tracing capabilities and new functions from the remastered version, including a brand new face for Peter Parker. The first comment on the YouTube video for this simply says, "Look how they massacred my boy." I was dying and laughing.
Yeah.
Let's first. What do you think about? Before I read the some information about this remaster from the blog, Seth, tell me, what were your first thoughts when you saw this video?
Okay, I have two things about this video I want to talk about. One is, I want you to imagine that you're just hanging out, chilling on a weekday, and Mr. Sony walks into the room, right? In his full 4K glory, and he says, "Hello, I'd like to show you a brand new example of Spider-Man footage running on PlayStation 5. And you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm super down for this. I'm really down for this." And then the video starts, and you're watching it, which I went through this. I'm watching it, and I'm like, and I was like, "Wait a second, what? Something's off." You just, like, you're very topical. My spidey sense was tingling. I was like,
I knew it was coming.
Something about this is off. And then I paused it, and I was like, did they change his face? And of course, I went straight to Twitter. Everyone immediately noticed, because I was there when this video went up. Like, it was like, I saw the tweet come out and was like, immediately watched it. So like, I was there to watch the like Pandora's box open. They didn't come out and say like, "We've changed his face. Here's what it looks like." They just said, "Here's gameplay," like, or "Here's what it looks like." Right? It was just a tech demo of like, "Well, here's what we've done to improve it." So it was kind of a bait and switch there. Then they kind of come out, and there's a couple of great tweets. I think from the original voice actor talking about, "It's my bones, everyone. My bones are the problem." And like, there was a lot of fun discussion around it. But I think at first I was very shocked, and I can't say I dislike the new face. I'm gonna just come out and say it. It looks like Tom Holland.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you.
It, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I see what Sony's doing." Sony owns one of the most valuable video game IPs of all time. and they also own the rights to probably one of the most popular. Like, I think when Spider-Man entered the MCU was probably the biggest moment for the MCU ever, right?
You know,
like,
we're gonna roll it one more time for
yeah.
people to catch up.
So basically, I think that Sony wanted to put 2 and 2 together, especially since they are going to be continuing to produce Spider-Man films. So they want Spider-Man to be, they want it to be consistent because they want people to play this game, love this game, and go watch the movie and not feel like, oh, well, that's a different Spider-Man. Even though it is, that's what's crazy. It is a different Spider-Man.
What's funny is it's like they listened to the feedback people gave about the Avengers, and they kind of sort of like, let's kind of adjust it and alter it just enough, but still call it our own. And people are like, we don't like it, it's the same. But we don't like it, but it's different.
People are never going to like it. People, this is one of those things that got blown way out of proportion. I don't think it matters that much. I think they made a creative decision, and we got to live with it. But one of the things that I hope this doesn't impact, and I kind of want to see it in action in other cutscenes, because
I do too. Agreed.
Peter Parker in this game, and the Spider-Man Marvel Spider-Man game, is a 23-year-old college graduate, right? Learning basically in that post-college weirdness where you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, you're trying to find a job, right? And so that's a very different character than Tom Holland's like, I'm a goofy teenager in high school, right? Like, it's very different, but they kind of look the same, so it's a little bit mixed messages. But
I think it's very jarring because a lot of people have played this game with the old Peter Parker face. And let me read here. I'll roll some other B-roll that they've showed us with the kind of the 60 frames per second performance mode that they're showing in the game here.
Yep.
As I go through, let's make sure I'm clicking this button right. As I read through some of the blog here. Clip on. There we go. This is from James Stevenson over at the PlayStation blog. We were so excited to announce that a voucher code for Marvel Spider-Man Remastered will be included with the Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition on PlayStation 5. Blah, 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 blah. We're going to skip. Let's talk about graphical updates. Let's skip all the BS. The team has done the painstaking work of updating the city's environments to take advantage of the new console. Beyond improved models and materials, one of the biggest things we have brought to the game is ray-traced reflections and ambient shadows. We now have true reflections on the windows of buildings, and it looks stunning with our new skies and weather. But it's not just the environments. Our characters have also gotten a huge upgrade. From higher fidelity skin, eyes, and teeth shaders to individually rendered strands of hair, the new tech and details bring our characters and their performances to new life. This does bring us to one of the bigger changes. In order to bring the best performances to players with our next generation Marvel Spider-Man games, plural, we have recast the face of Peter Parker. We loved working with John Bubniak on the original game. However, to get a better match to Peter Parker, Spider-Man actor Yuri Lowenthal's facial capture, we have cast Ben Jordan to be the face model for Peter Parker on the PS5 console. He looks incredible in-game, and Yuri's moving performance takes on a new life. Of course, they also showed the clip. There. Additionally, thanks to the power of the PS5 console, we're now able to offer a high frame rate through Performance Mode, which targets a 60 frame per second frame rate. This allows you to experience the beginning of the Marvel Spider-Man storyline like never before. It feels amazing to play. There's the clip that we just watched this for. That's not all. We take full advantage of other next-gen PlayStation features like near instant loading, spatial 3D audio on compatible headphones, and the revolutionary DualSense controller's haptic feedback, blah, blah, blah. They also, one thing that I'm actually very excited about this, and I know this is going to be a polarizing thing for people, but they also revealed one of the new spider suits they're going to be adding into the game. I'm going to bring back up on the webpage here, and it is this suit here. If you don't know this suit, this is the Spider-Man suit from the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, with what's his name?
Andrew Garfield. With
Andrew Garfield as a Spider-Man, which I liked those movies. I understand people's criticism of them. I liked the first one and the second one. They're better than Spider-Man 3. I'll say that. But no, it was cool to see the new kind of updates to Spider-Man. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I know you said your piece. I just don't. I don't. It's something I have to get used to because I am one of those people as well that I'm used to the original face, yeah. But I agree that I want to see more of it in action before I start, dropping the hammer or judging it potentially unfairly. Because I don't. But at the end of the day, if it's a creative decision, like you said, I don't have a problem with it. It's not like, oh my god, people. This is a classic case of like the internet's like, oh, this is awful, this is horrible, and yet people are going to run out and buy the Ultimate Edition of Miles Morales like hotcakes and be like, man, Spider-Man's great, woo!
Yeah, Well, I want to ask you a question though. You had mentioned you kind of highlighted the point that they said Spider-Man games, plural.
Yes.
What was your reasoning behind highlighting that? What is it you wanted to draw?
This is very clear that this is a trilogy of games, like even more so than that. We've got Miles Morales coming. Expect Spider-Man 2. Expect Spider-Man 3. Like the first one has sold enough. Spider-Man carries enough clout that they didn't even have to say that. Like, we know this is another huge franchise for Sony and Insomniac and the PlayStation brand. So
I would say it is the hugest franchise. It is the best-selling. Like, think about all the amazing games from PlayStation 4. All of them were out-trumped sold-wise, like trumped by the. Sorry, I need to delete that word from my vocabulary. All of them were overshadowed by the Marvel Spider-Man game, right? And I think that game was a perfect storm of like, it was a game that everybody wanted really, really, really badly, but it was also like God of War is a great game. God of War is also a bit of a niche franchise in the mainstream. Like I could go up to a random stranger on the side of the road or, on the street and say, hey, can you describe Kratos to me? And they're going to be like, who? But if I go up and say, describe Spider-Man for me, you're going to get a very accurate description, right?
Yeah.
It's that.
Clearly.
So that's part of the reason why I think that Spider-Man is the most valuable Sony franchise, period. And that's not just PlayStation. That's Sony company as a Sony or as Sony. And so, it's cool to see them putting in a little bit extra work. It's weird, but yeah, definitely the reaction was strangely inflated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with you as well. The reaction to this next story, though, should not be overinflated here. Next up on the list here, Fall Guys Season 2 is coming. This one, a reading from a Fall Guys Twitter feed post. Bean spilling post announcing dates always feels like you're cursing things, but it's Halloween month, so let's get cursed. Season 2 launches Thursday, October 8th. Season 1 will now end as Season 2 begins, and we're going to double fame points during this time. So, very quick, very small announcement, but I'm still excited. Have you been playing more Fall Guys? Because I do.
Yes.
This is my game that I jump into every once in a while, and I have so much fun with it. How about yourself?
Yes, Fall Guys is probably one of the most enjoyable games that have come out this year. Season 2 is going to be like, I really love the idea. One of the things, and Cameron, we've talked about this for a long time. We've always talked about games as a service being this like dirty word, right? That implies microtransactions and all of that. I think that a game like Fall Guys is a great example of what a games as a service can really be, because they're going with this theme. It's medieval themed. I'm very excited for it. Like the image you just showed had the wizard hat, and I think there was another one that was like a knight or something like that. And it's just going to be fun to play new medieval themed games, get some new medieval themed costumes. Just like Legos, there's the classic themes, right? Castles, space, cowboys, pirates, right? That go through that. Like Fall Guys is just such an enjoyable game. I want a pirate hat and a spacesuit. That's what I want that game to look like in a year, because it truly is. It's one of the most like enjoyable and just honest to goodness fun games to play. It really throws back to like the early days of Minecraft and things where I just jump in with my friends and we're all having a good time and just goofing off and having fun.
Yeah, and everybody's just playing wonderfully. It's awesome.
No controversies around face swaps or anything like that. Just good, clean fun.
No, I'm excited. Really want to see, and I think it's good timing too, because I think we're getting at that point where it's like, Fall Guys, okay, we've had fun. Now people are kind of pulling their eyes away from it, and they're like, give us more, because they're gamers. We're gamers. We want give us more new things. And I think them coming over and showing, hey, season 2 is coming out at this date, is really soon. Yeah. Is going to get people interested in the game.
You got to pull them back in from Among Us, dude.
Oh
Going
yeah,
back
dude.
in.
Oh my god. I might have to talk about that story in the post show.
That sounds, yeah. Post show chat, we definitely need to talk about Among Us.
Cool.
So.
What we're going to talk about now is our final kind of topic here in the news. This, Nintendo came out and they revealed a new character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I know there are a couple of characters left in the pass. We're watching the B-roll right now. If you're watching the video here, I don't know if I did not expect this, but it was, I don't know. It's cool, but it's interesting as well. Also going to read here from Cameron Faulkner over on TheVerge.com. If you're surprised, Steve and Alex from Minecraft are coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on October 13th. Nintendo revealed on Thursday that Steve and Alex from Minecraft will be added to the character roster in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch, and now we're getting the full reveal. They'll arrive on October 13th, and there's a whole video you can watch, as you guys are seeing right now on video. The video reveals that you will effectively have 6 different Minecraft characters to choose from, because Steve and Alex have 3 different skins each. Plus, there's a zombie and an Enderman at around 4 minutes into the video. You'll be able to harvest materials from the walls and grounds with your various tools to craft upgrades on the fly, and the materials you get depend on the stage. A Star Fox level will get you a lot of iron, for instance. They also have an awesome picture of what Kirby looks like when he absorbs Steve or Alex, and it's about what you would expect here. It looks very jarring and weird from every other character, and it kind of throws me off a little bit. But I will also say again, Cameron has never touched or played Minecraft ever, so I have no hype or nostalgia or like to this being introduced into the game. The closest I've ever been is Minecraft Dungeons, and that's it. Seth, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, listen. Smash. I don't play Smash at all. I think the last time I booted up Smash was the year it came out. Like, I am just not a Super Smash Brothers fan as far as playing the game. Mm-hmm. I love Super Smash Brothers character announcements because I know they are such a big.
That's my favorite clip when Snake is hiding in the box and Enderman leans over.
Listen, that's Nintendo coming in making sure that there's no more additional Snake content. Yeah, like, we changed your butt. That's it, dude. So. I want you to know that as much fun as this was, even better was the reaction. Because of course, I think that Smash character predictions are one of the most stupid and ridiculous. Like those threads are insane, right? Like, oh, they're gonna add Dante from Devil May Cry. Oh, they're gonna add Travis from No More Heroes. They're gonna add people just go out, and I'm like, why would they Devil May Cry is cool, but why would Nintendo think that's a franchise that's going to do well with this mainstream audience?
Because it's what they want. That's what they want.
Do you know what people want? Minecraft. People love Minecraft. Minecraft is without question one of the most popular video game IPs of all time. It is in the halls with Mario and Zelda and Master Chief. Minecraft is bigger than games in itself, right? So I think it makes sense that they went with this. But I'm sorry, I think you have a point. What you were saying.
No, I was just going to read. Rurutu in chat says, "Hey man, Microsoft paid $2.5 billion for this. It hasn't made the money back yet."
I think
questionable.
You'd be surprised.
Questionable.
I think they made that money back within a year. Looking at merchandising and things like that, Minecraft is one of the most valuable IPs in gaming. Period. Very, very few. How many video games do you see on toy shelves, right? How many video games do you see, other than Mario, do you see consistently in the children's clothing section, right? Basically since 2013, since it first came out, it has just been...
When a video game property begins to have toys, like figurines and action figures... They're a big deal. I'll tell you that 100%. When they're getting to that level, that means they're reaching a very strong saturation point that people can recognize.
And Minecraft makes sense because it's on Switch, right? I think that's, a lot of people are like, why didn't they add this? Why didn't they add this? Devil May Cry is not on Switch, so there's no. I think maybe 3 is on Switch. Maybe
they have. There's the collection. I think is on Switch.
Okay, the collection. So I apologize, but Minecraft is just such a cool and interesting like IP. And then also what I loved about this is they didn't just put Steve in Smash. They like added this whole block building mechanic to the game. So they Sakurai in the video actually talks about they're having to go back and retool a lot of the levels from a code standpoint to allow for block building, right? So they added as always with any new character, you want to see what the Kirby transformation is, right? And so there's a new Kirby transformation that is A+. It's one of my favorite Kirby transformations.
Let me see if I can pull it up here.
Yeah,
Continue talking, pull it up.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite Kirby transforms since Joker from Persona 5. Because
there it is.
Yeah, look at that little QB Kirby. So cute. But the thing that I really love about this in particular is that they didn't just port Steve and Alex and all the characters in there. They're making something that's like really special and unique for Minecraft character. And I think they did this with other third-party IPs, right? When they bring in Joker, they don't just put him in there with like as a skin for another character. He is his own character that's designed and built to play. And if you're a fan of Persona and you jump in there and you're like, oh my goodness, there's his move that he did. Same goes here for Steve. If you jump in, you saw him doing the lava, pouring the lava out. You saw him, locking someone in the jail and then hitting them with the piston to like launch them off, right? Like there's just so much like thought and care put into this. I just love the way that Nintendo incorporates these third-party IPs, and I cannot wait to see what else they have. Also, last thing, put Goku in Smash. What are you just do it. Just put Goku in Smash. It
would break the game. It would literally break the game. I don't know if they're prepared for that.
Game. It would break the internet. It would break everything. Put Goku in Smash. But for now, we have Steve. I love Steve. I love Minecraft. I will never get enough of it, and so this is great news. In fact, this tempts me to even like pull out Smash and maybe give it a shot. But
really, ooh.
I just love Minecraft. I love everything, the aesthetic, and they've done such a good job here with the levels they're putting in. It's just so much fun.
Baruto in chat says, "Will Shonen Jump do it?" I think it's already in the. What's the game? Shonen? No. What's
V-Star Victory?
No.
V-Star.
The
Jump
other
Force.
game, Jump Force. Thank you.
Jump Force. Yeah. I mean,
Jump Force.
The difference is Smash is good.
Ooh.
And I can say that because Jump Force was on Game Pass.
Is it not on there anymore?
I don't think it is.
Oh.
I'm going to fact check myself real quick.
That's a shame. That's sad to see. No? Yes?
Maybe not. However, we are here at the part of the show where we're done with the news. In fact, I said this earlier, we're done with these gigaton announcements that are, causing us to spur into these 3-hour podcast episodes. We finally have a nice, relaxing week, and we were kind of talking about like what might be good ideas, and there was one that I kind of wanted to do, and a lot of game outlets had this discussion last month, but I still think that the hype cycle was going on. But Cameron, I want to ask you something. So I'm walking up, I'm pressing Y next to your vehicle, next to your podcast. I'm opening the door, I'm throwing you in the street, I'm taking over because I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
And my question, we are sitting here on October the 4th in the year of our Lord 2020.
You were going to say 20 Turner.
20 Turner. As cursed as this year has been, it is still a year nonetheless, right? I think that once we've kind of closed out September, we are officially past the summer hype cycle for video games, right? We are now moving into games coming out. So now I want to take this moment, this brief respite before we get into all the games in the next gen hype and all of that stuff. What do you think? How do you think this year went from a video game press cycle perspective, given that E3 did not happen at all? So this is like a retrospective question. E3 was announced on March 11th, 2020. I know a lot of people think that we're still in that month. Like it still feels like March for some people.
It does, but no, it's October. It's
March 11th. Why can I not remember the name of the company that runs E3?
ESRB. No, ESA.
ESA, thank you. The
Acronyms.
ESA, yes, announced that E3 was not happening this year, and it kind of sent some ripples through the industry. Right, a lot of conversations around that time is like, is E3 still relevant? We've been talking about that for years, right? Well, this is the first year they canceled it outright. Not like they didn't delay it, they didn't push it, they didn't change it. They just, we're not even trying it. And not long after that, we started to see people react to this. But I wanted to ask you, before we dive into the specifics, Cameron, how do you think this year, being a console generation launch, being a year of unprecedented growth in gaming, right? Gaming just blew up this year as a hobby, given that so many people were locked in. How do you feel we did from both a practical standpoint and from a hype standpoint without E3 this year? Were you as hyped as you typically are for video game announcements through the year? And do you think that more information was delivered more clearly because there was no E3?
Ooh, man. Was I as hyped? I really don't. So, maybe we can consider this a Seth analogy. So you go and take a Coke, like a 20-ounce Coke bottle. You're thirsty, you want to get something to drink. You take a Coke bottle. And then you can do one of two things with the Coke bottle. You can either open the Coke bottle as you normally do and just, take your sips and like, it's refreshing. Love drinking it. You drink it throughout the day. Or if you're a crazy person, like some of us are, you shake it up and you let all that pressure build up as much as you can, and just unscrew it, spew it all over the place, and all the Coke and carbonation comes out.
He's referring to Coca-Cola, the soda.
Yes.
I need to be clear. Your verbiage without context could come.
Not anything else. Coca-Cola.
In a lot of different areas.
Coca-Cola. A pop for everybody up north.
No. Coke. I've opened a Coke.
So, and I feel like in years past, that's what it's always been. E3 has been that shaking the Coke bottle moment. And because we didn't have E3 this year, it was kind of like what we've normally done. We just take a drink, we sip it, whenever we're thirsty, and we continue on. And from a hype standpoint, I don't think it lives up to that, really. Because, as we like to say, E3 is like gamer Christmas. It's where we finally get to figure out what's coming out in the fall, what stuff do we need to go ahead and start pre-ordering and getting our money set aside for and scheduling that. And because we didn't have a big event like E3, we really didn't have, at least for me personally, I didn't really feel like I had those like super hype moments. There were little spurts that happened throughout the summer when events like PlayStation conferences and Xbox conferences, Ubisoft Forward, all other sorts of stuff popped up. And there was definitely notable stuff this year that I think warranted like the hype levels that you should have for those type of announcements. But there really wasn't anything that really blew me out of the water. And what's funny is, and I see it, we've got it on the note here, it's probably going to be your next point. I brought it up. The one thing that I thought was going to be that replacement, and I was really interested in, are we going to have a competitor to E3 or something that's an alternative, was Summer Game Fest. And I will definitely say I kind of feel let down by Summer Game Fest. I don't know, I don't want to play it off, but like Summer Game Fest was basically what it really boiled down to is it felt like if I had just made a calendar, like a gaming calendar, and just put all the dates for all the announcements that came out throughout the year, because that's basically what it was. I guess I went in thinking that this was going to be like the digital kind of replacement for E3, where it was going to host a lot of stuff and it was going to push and a lot of stuff was going to funnel through this, but it really wasn't. This was kind of just an ancillary thing that kind of piggybacked off of gaming announcements that popped up throughout the summer and said, oh, yeah, we'll put that on the calendar so you can come over here and we'll remind you in case you forgot. And you can kind of see here, if you're watching the video, you can see they have it very nice. that it's a resource there. You can see all the game announcements that came up through May and June and July and August. But as far as like having that one, I really miss that one spot where I could go and I could reliably point to and say, that's where all your information is. And as cool as this looks like, I don't think Summer Game Fest was it. Not by a long shot. What are your thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what you said. I agree that my expectations for Summer Game Fest might have been a little bit inflated, but I did expect that to be the banner that the rest of the industry kind of rallied behind. Kind of like it, I expected for it to feel like the Game Awards, but instead of the Game Awards is like the celebration of gaming for the year. Mm-hmm. This is more of like the celebration of the hype for gaming, right? Like this is more about the announcements and the future of gaming, right? Not that necessarily reflection on the past of this year, right?
Yeah.
So I expected that. I think what ended up happening is back in May, everybody started to because. And I understand. Like, I understand IGN has a sales team, and the minute they heard that there was no E3, they were, like, drooling, and they were like, oh, we can be the new E3, and all the advertisers will come to us, and we can make all the... Like, that is what happened. I can tell. Behind closed doors, the sales teams went bananas. I've worked for companies that have been in gaming before, and the sales teams drool when opportunities like this come up, because now they can sell ad spots on these press events, right? Yep. And so Keeley always does a good job of keeping that kind of behind the scenes, right? We get glimpses of it with the Schick Hydrobot and things like that, but generally his events come off as very professional and well produced. But what ended up happening is everybody started trying to grab announcements, right? IGN did a thing. Devolver did it. Everybody does their own thing. Kind of like if you had a press conference, now you basically had a show, right? That you had to live stream and produce, right? I think most people that were present with press conferences, with the exception of Bethesda, which was omitted for probably reasons that we now know, they were probably in discussions, and we're like, we don't need to necessarily master this.
Well, to piggyback off of that, I'll definitely say that was one thing that was really cool, and I think that is a benefit to those developers and those groups that in 2020 now, that barrier to the gamer is more direct than ever. You know, you and I both remember, Seth, when we were growing up, when E3 came out, the only way we knew about E3 was we would have to go find Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine and then open it up to the E3 section for June or July whenever that year was, and then read up all the announcements that happened. But now we can go directly to these companies, different, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, and just have it beamed directly to our face. We don't need a middleman or anybody else to do that. So I think that is cool. I like that more direct approach. That being said, it could still be direct by having, instead of it being sheep running around the field, we could still go touch the sheep, but we can also have a sheep herder that says, get in the cage, stay right here, and let the people come through and touch you.
Yeah. And like jumping back to, I think, a question that has been uttered hundreds of times this year is E3 still relevant? I think this year has proven to us that yes, it is, from an industry focus standpoint.
Yeah.
Now, we know, unless something major changes, that Sony will probably not be back anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
And they can, at the end of the day, people think that, Sony pulled out, they've lost their floor space. No, if Sony wanted back into E3, they would roll out the red carpet for them once again, right? Microsoft will be there, but they're doing the EA thing. They're across the street with their own little Microsoft theater. Like, I imagine that coming back next year. So I think what E3 really does is it gives people a focused point that they can kind of orbit around when it comes to the messaging and the hype and the news cycle, right? It's a good, clean 3.5 to 4 months before the games start releasing. That's plenty of time for people to, that's late enough in the process where people know that they're going to be able to hit those deadlines, as long as COVID's not happening, right? Like, remember, COVID was the blanket over everything this year. But
thanks, COVID.
But yeah, I mean, that's where you get the moments like Fallout 4, where they announce the game and it's available in November, right? It really creates this hype cycle. And a lot of people are like, well, Nintendo's been able to detach themselves from that cycle, so like they don't need that. No, Nintendo is still the biggest booth at E3 every single year. they've taken the message away from E3, but E3 is still where they go to connect with fans. And so let me ask you this, Cameron. When you think about E3 next year, what do you think E3 next year should look like? Now, bear this in mind that we have what E3's been in the past, right? Bunch of news conferences, bunch of interviews, press events, very press focused, right? With maybe a show floor similar to kind of like a PAX where people are playing games.
Yeah.
And then there's also, and we know this from leaked documents, there's this new activation, like murky bog of marketing that they were kind of crafting for this year that was like, oh, you know what, we're going to have influencers here. We're going to have, basketball stars and movie stars. Kind of like if you remember the Keanu Reeves moment on stage, right? Like they wanted to create more moments like that where you'd have these big pop culture icons and video games kind of clashing at E3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think E3 goes from here? What would be, and let me ask you this from a much more podcast appropriate. If you were the guy running E3, what would you want to do in 2021 to bring E3 back into the spotlight and have that big return to form, right? And it's assuming that COVID is...
This is very easy for me. Like,
please, share.
Especially after this summer, I've really thought about it, and it's good we're talking about it now. It's like, make it like Gamescom. Make it like other conferences. Now, I understand the big part of this is that E3 is... There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on for, like, business reasons with not only just press, but with, like, developers and companies making deals, pitching games, what have you. But I think, like, they've kind of started on that trend where, make some of the days like, okay, let's say E3 starts. Let's start E3 Monday through Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe have a couple of days beforehand where it's just press. Let them come in, let them record their videos and get prepared and get all their content going. You could still save a couple of surprises for the why am I blanking on this word right now? The press conferences. But still, a lot of this information, like, it really, some people don't realize it really helps a lot, and press can get their information to you a lot faster because they're already busting their ass to do it. But now, the mere fact that they have to bust their ass while our fat asses are standing in line trying to play the same game when they, like, we need to get this so we can show that everybody else who's not at this conference what the game is, it really helped them, and especially for gamers around the world, to get that information a lot cleaner and faster if they had time ahead of time where they're not having to rush in lines, they're not having to push people away, or even if fight for attention to these very limited controllers or booths where they have set up. But let them go first. Give them the first 2-3 days to do whatever they need to do, and then have the big celebration where it's just open the gates, let all the gamers come in and play these games. It should not... I thought about this, thinking about E3 over the years. I'm so glad that booth babes are gone. I'm so glad this is not a thing anymore.
But, sadly, they're not gone. They're gone from the big people, like from the Xboxes and the PlayStations. They're not, like, the industry's grown up, but they are still there. You want to buy some energy drinks, they're there.
Okay, good point. But, like, making it more about the people trying to attend it, making it more about them coming in, them, like us, the gamers coming in, let us try your games out. I think that especially if you let people say, hey, we want to let you try this game, we got to be very upfront with you first. This is a work in progress game. This is not for, don't go into this game assuming that this is the final build. This is pre-alpha, alpha, beta, whatever build it is. Give them, like, and focus more on, like, these companies having these experiences directly with the consumer, as opposed to trying to still focus on catering to the business aspect of it. And that's the reason that E3 has been losing money over the last couple of years. That's the reason they've been struggling, trying to figure out what they need to do for E3, and I think Gamescom has been doing that for a couple of years now. I think they need to start leaning into that more, because I promise you, if you make E3 somewhat similar to stuff like PAX, I've been to PAX South. I love basically they had big companies out there like, go have fun, play the games, meet people, like stuff like PAX, stuff like other gaming conventions, like. They will have success. People will want to go to it, and people will be excited. And I easily they'll make their money back. Easily,
yeah.
That would be my dream, though.
So, do you think E3 is going to come back next year as a concept that people gravitate toward, or do you see next year looking similar to this year, where we kind of just have these random drops? Now, there will be a big focal point around that first week of June, right? That's probably still going to be there. And there may be, I expect there to be an event called E3 next year that takes place in, LA like it typically does. But do you think that Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo are going to show up and be at that conference? Are they going to pay for that booth space? Or has this year been the year where everyone realized, hey, you know what? Let's just put it on our Twitch channel. Let's just produce this video or do it on our own stage live. Where do you think E3 sits moving forward now that we are in the reality of like, hey, E3 didn't happen this year, and these consoles are also going to launch to probably the biggest sales they've ever seen before?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? E3 is going to come back. They've already said as much. Coming into next year, E3 is going to be back. But that is the big question, though, about whether the companies are going to jump into E3, especially if, after all this is said and done, if these companies are looking at their numbers, their views on YouTube, how much traffic they're getting by focusing directly to the consumer instead of just having a show at E3, if that is more beneficial to them, I would not be surprised if we start seeing some bigger companies saying, you know what, I'm not going to be at E3 this year. EA was right, Microsoft was right, Sony was right. It's better if I just go ahead and, if I have an own event around that time off-site and kind of, without not thinking of a better term, piggyback off of the hype of E3, then I can probably get more traffic and have more eyes and more optics on my games than just being in the E3 show floor and being kind of a part of a larger whole, which, it's one of those trade-offs where it's nice to have one focal point to get all your information, but by doing that, a lot of the bigger fish will drown out some of the smaller fish, such as indie games or smaller announcements that you're really excited for, but you would not know otherwise. I think that looking at this year, I think that those smaller announcements got their time to shine and got their time to breathe, as opposed to, if we were at E3, I know a lot of some of these indie announcements and smaller announcements that popped up may not have gotten as much fanfare as they did this year.
Okay. So, before I ask this next question, I need to remind everyone that we have a monthly show called Console Wars, where we discuss the strategy of each Microsoft and Sony moving into the next generation, right? We've been doing it all year long, leading up to next-gen consoles, and that's where we dive in.
We got 1 month before. Oh, God.
I know, right?
Oh, God.
That's where we talk about this. However, it is common knowledge for those that are frequent flyers here that Cameron is a big fan of Sony. He really likes their strategy, and he's the Sony analysis, right? He is the guy who knows Sony. I am that for Microsoft, right? And the Xbox brand. So I want to ask you, Cameron, from Sony's from a Sony analyst perspective that you are. That's right. You're a Sony analyst right now.
No.
You are. I want you to look at this year. How do you think Sony did this year with the way they approached E3? Because also remember, this was the year they announced the pullout, right? Or was it? No, they pulled out last year, didn't they?
They've not been a part of E3 for at least 2 to 3 years now.
So this is like the second year or third year that they have not been in E3. They went with a very clear, like, state of play focused, very controlled burst messages between the blog and the video content. How do you think Sony did this year compared to what a more traditional E3 presence might have been? And do you see them sticking with that next year, or do you see Sony coming back to coming back into the E3 ecosystem?
It's hard to say this year. I'll be really honest, because of next gen. That's really, all things aside.
Yeah, that's what I'm including. Like, do you think that this console announcement was everything it could have been because of the way they did it?
Honestly, it's exactly what they wanted, and the big thing was that the hype. Again, I talked to that analogy that I mentioned at the start. Sony shook the bottle, kept all that information, shook it, and they popped up with the cork, and all of the fluids spewed out. Take that how you want, and onto the internet, and people were super, super hyped. I remember, and it's those two different ideologies about like how this information is spread out. Everybody was so excited, so super excited to watch those state of plays, especially the ones with PlayStation 5 stuff in them. When they finally showed off the box, people, that's all they talked about for the week. When they started talking about the price, that's all they talked about for the week, and that's a big deal. And I think that it's, the next gen hypes everything up for both companies, more so than ever. And I think, but even then, I think that the fact that they got that much attention, but it's still without going to E3 or without even having an E3, I think it's a very good sign. Don't take it as an assumption that Sony's going to be back at E3 anytime soon. I think I think they've gotten their state of plays under control. They know how to directly message those. They know what content they need to show and how they need to show them. I think they have a great flow with their bigger conferences and their bigger videos. And so I think they're hitting all the right notes. And if they come in next year, I think they can easily say, hey, let's save a couple of millions of dollars instead of putting up a booth. Let's release a video out. Go directly to the consumers, directly talk with them during that E3 timeframe. And I don't, they did it a little bit last year as well. I don't think it's going to hurt them in the least. I really don't.
Yeah, one thing I've always really liked about Sony's approach is when they do, and I don't know that they did it this year because everything was shut down, but when they do those theater, I think they call them the PlayStation Experience, the theater buyouts, right?
Yes.
Where you can live stream it at a theater. That, I think, is a really cool way to help bring the hype of E3 to the fans, where you give people a place to congregate physically. Now, again, not possible this year for either side. But next year, I'd like to see them return to that PlayStation Experience approach, because I've never actually been to one of those. I think it would be really fun and interesting to go to one of those, given that I think this year we really saw two state of plays that would have been combined into one E3 press event, right? Like that PlayStation 5 reveal one where they announced Miles Morales and all of that, and then the most recent one with Final Fantasy 16 and all of that. I think those would have both been in the E3.
God, if that had happened, I would be dead right now. Like
it would have been another E3 of dreams, right? Like it would, like, think Final Fantasy 16, Miles Morales, Horizon Forbidden West, like
that
God
gif
of War Ragnarok.
Of Sanders and Son, Fred Sanders, where it's like,
yeah,
that would have been me, 100%.
And what's crazy is that if E3 had happened this year, if COVID was not a thing, I think that this year would have been the biggest E3 ever, period. Because we just talked about Sony, right? Like Ragnarok, like all those games Demon Souls remake, like all of that would have been in one contained press conference along with the reveal of the box. Switch over so this is my transition into talking about Microsoft and my thoughts on that. So first off, I want you to imagine if Microsoft's press event was Halo Infinite, and we assume that hopefully maybe if COVID had not hit them as hard, that Halo Infinite would be in a better position and be ready to go this year, because we had about 3 or 4 months where just productivity stopped for most people. So we assume Halo Infinite was up and looking good. Fable got announced, all the things from that July. The Xbox Series X and S were revealed at the same event. The price were revealed at the same event. The Bethesda acquisition revealed at that event. Like, imagine the megaton that both of those press, like Sony would have had that, Gajigga conference.
That would have been crazy. Like, leading up to E3, it would have been like, Bethesda coming out and says, we're not having an E3 press conference this year. And people would be like, why, dude, you've got so many games, what's going on? And then Phil Spencer says, I've got some great people that I want to bring onto the stage to talk about their next game and next venture, and then Pete Hines and Todd Howard walk up on the stage and they're like, Bethesda is now a part of the Xbox family.
It would have Cameron. I can't. It would have been hype of back compat announcement. I want to see that. It would have been the hype of.
I want to go to the timeline where that actually happens.
Yeah, take me to that quantum timeline. Yeah,
man.
So, to answer the question of do I think that E3 was missed? Yes, I think it was missed. I think that the video games were not as hype as they could have been, given that E3 did not exist. Now, remember the question I asked you was twofold: is do you feel like the hype was higher or lower than it could have been, and then also do you think the clarity of information was higher or lower than it could have been? And I personally think that the clarity of information was better this year because it was spread out. Like, I really think that there were a lot of opportunities for games to shine that maybe would not have had that opportunity. A great example. Sorry.
I'm using analogies for you here. Imagine if you get mail, 2 or 3 letters each day in the mail, as opposed to let me take the entire week's worth of mail and shove it into your inbox at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I enjoy the post E3, like that week after E3, where I'm just going through YouTube and rewatching the Jeff Keighley show that I might have missed, right? Because I had to tune into the other things. So I'm getting to see Jeff Keighley and a lot of his, I think a lot of the things that happened with Summer Games Fest this year would have been segments on Keighley's show, right? He normally does that YouTube show, right?
Well, he partners with YouTube and does the
every
E3
year
on YouTube. Yeah.
And so that's where, and you think about that, he's very Activision heavy. I think he has a great relationship with Activision because if you look at what he announced this year, it was Crash, it was a new Tony Hawk, all Activision IP, right? So that new Tony Hawk game really got a chance to be shown off outside of just a trailer, right? They got to talk about it. Vicarious Visions got to come out and talk about oh, here's what we're doing with the game. Here's our vision for the game, right? And that's something that you really wouldn't have gotten at E3. That would have had to have been a bonus thing that came out on YouTube later, but it would not have been a part of a live stream per se, right? So I think from a standpoint of accessibility for people, it was much better, right? Of course, going to the event, the people who are at the event are privileged to be able to go to that event and privileged to be able to participate in the hype, right? 99% remember, there are 3 billion humans on planet Earth that game. 99% of those humans do not get to experience E3 ever. We'll never get to experience it, right?
Truth.
And I've talked about it in the past. I don't like when they show a game at E3 and then I sit down and listen to a podcast and get an hour and a half play-by-play of what a journalist played. Just put the footage on YouTube. I understand you got to throw journalism a bone now and then, but throw them a bone with an awesome interview and put some some people out there. And so that's where I look at where I want E3 to go next year. I want
Ice Wallow in chat says Elden Ring, please.
Elden Ring.
We haven't heard anything about that game.
Elden Ring is becoming I don't even know what to compare it to. It's the game that everybody wants, but nobody's talking about. So but bringing it back to my original point, I think that E3 should strive to make a show that is accessible to more gamers around the world. One of the things I saw this year that I really hope comes back next year, Steam's done this the past couple years, but Microsoft joined this year. They called it, I think it was a Game Fest Summer Festival or something like that. Yeah. And basically for the week of what would have been E3, Microsoft had about 100 game demos that you could play that were very much like show floor demos that you would have played at the indie, the indie aisle at E3, right? Now, yeah, you didn't get a playable Cyberpunk demo, right? That's not happening. But there were a lot of interesting and cool things that were shown for everyone, right? Everyone got access to that. And that's kind of what I want to see E3 become, where, yes, there's an event, they have the show floor, there's lots of exclusive interviews and the marketing world activations, but at home, there's not really anything to do other than watch whoever you want to watch react to something, right? Or watch it on the official channel. And so I think it would be really nice touch to be Microsoft. I'm just going to use Microsoft because that's my frame of reference, right? And they're like, we're really excited to show you how amazing, we'll say, Fable can be. So we're going to be, letting you try out a small segment where you can kind of see what movement looks like, or, just one of those little tech demos.
Something like that, right? Yeah.
Slap the watermark that says this is an in development project, not, like you do that all the time. But or here's a better example, Destiny, right? Destiny Beyond Light. They were showing a lot of cool stuff about the new Destiny expansion, right? Make that something where, like, in the tower in Destiny, a portal opens up, right? And you can jump in the portal and be taken to another dimension that is a glimpse into the future, right? And it could be like this little crafted level that's, maybe 5 minutes in length, but gives you an idea of what those dark powers, the darkness powers are going to be, right?
Yeah.
And just do something little like that lets everyone participate. I think I would rather a developer spend their time building that and putting that in the game, just that little 5-minute trial run to get me hyped, to let me play that I could play 1,000 times, right, over and over, versus going and just watching it on YouTube over and over and over again. It allows me to get a little bit more engaged. Now, will that ever happen? I don't think so. I don't think the ESA really has the ability to do that themselves. It's weird because they're the only one with the clout to, like, host a show like E3. Like, if Jeff Keighley couldn't do it, I don't think anyone can. Like, I think that the temptation to do your own thing, and that's not just Microsoft, Sony, that's IGN, Game, like any outlet, anything that has anything to do with video games would want to do their own thing. And everybody wants to be, we're the E3 replacement that you need, right? Everybody did that this year. And so if Jeff Keighley couldn't do it, I don't think anybody else could. My big curiosity point at this point, Cameron, is like, what is E3 next year? Is it a show that you gotta be at, or is it just a time frame that things happen around, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. That's we're gonna find out in 2021. We're gonna find out in the spring when they start actually having these announcements and telling people when dates are gonna be.
Yeah.
So definitely agree. And anything else? Any other questions we want to talk about with this topic?
First off, thank you for letting me hijack your topic of the show.
Look,
we were talking about this.
It's if you have topics behind the curtain, as people to let people know, like when I'm making the show notes, I always send them to Seth, but I also tell him, hey, if you have ideas, let me know. And full stop. If he has ideas, you're running the show. I get to sit back and drink my water and like, hey, this is great. I get to talk this time. I get to rant.
Exactly. And I think that really, so far, with all this stretched out information, right? It's every show, it's been very clear. Like, we got to talk about Sony's press comp, state of play. We got to talk about Microsoft's thing. We got to talk about this. And so this is one of the first weeks that I can think of where we've kind of had flexibility in that and kind of a break in that. And one of the goals I know that you and I talked about, here's some even more inside baseball for you. When I kind of came back to the show as a full-time co-host, I was like, I don't want to just be a show that just talks about the same old. There are sometimes conversations that we need to have, like, is E3 still relevant? Is crunch bad? Or, that kind of stuff. Like, we'll have those conversations, but we also want to have really unique and interesting topics that tap into your and I unique perspective, being in the Southeast, very far away from the West Coast and the beating heart of gaming, right?
What is internet? Whatever.
Exactly. And also, like, coming from a product design background, a lot of times I like to look at things through the lens of like a product person and a designer, right? I'm not a game designer. Ooh, sorry. My bad for
breaking the mic. He's getting hyped, guys. Get ready.
Yeah. Not saying I'm a game designer. Not a game designer. I am a product designer. I build digital websites and apps, right? But a lot of the philosophies are the same, right? It's making the best experience for the user. And when you look at how E3 was rolled out this year, there was an experience that was presented to us. I don't think it was the best for the user. I think it was very fragmented, and there was a lot of messaging around it. Either. But our unique perspective kind of helped add to that, and we want to share that with you here on this. So this was fun. I had a lot of fun this week talking about this. We're going to have even more fun in our Patreon exclusive and Twitch subscriber exclusive post show that's going to be coming up right after this episode is over. Yes. you still have time. If you've got Amazon Prime, that means you have a Prime Gaming subscription, not Twitch Prime.
Oh man, you scared us. Get it right. Good job.
Prime Gaming subscription. It's part of your. Listen, Jeff Bezos is trying to put your money in his pockets. You got to reach in and pull out your money and put it into getting this post show, because that is free credit that you have if you have Amazon Prime. You can subscribe right now. You'll get a cool little notification. We'll shout out, build up the hype, but then you will get to participate in the exclusive post show that's after this. But if you are the type of person who prefers the after image or instant transmission or ultra instinct, choose your arc. If you want the experience beyond live, then Patreon is your gateway to that. So you will also get the archives of those exclusive post shows on patreon.com/Rocket Punch.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
You got it.
Patreon.com/Rocket Punch. We did get that one. We got that one.
We did one out of
until
many.
Inevitably the K-pop band decides
they don't need it. They don't. If they're on Patreon, something's very, very wrong.
Exactly.
Well, look, dude.
Yeah, that was it for my thing.
You gotta finish it off. Close us out here.
Listen,
wrap it up.
This is the Rocket Punch Show. We are live every single Sunday, somewhere between 7 and 8.
Yep.
Whenever we can get on here. We try and get here as quickly as we can, everyone. But yeah, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Huge thank you to our Patreon producers, Joshie M, Sam S, Jeremy M, Stephen S, Adam C. You guys are the best, and we appreciate it so much. And like I said, if you want to support the show and get exclusive access, behind the scenes access, exclusive content, patreon.com/Rocket Punch is where you want to go. You can also check down below to our Discord that we have all kinds of cool gaming discussions, tons of like awesome streamers you can check out. We're using it right now to host this show. The Discord is the hub for all things Rocket Punch. Definitely check out the link for that where you can go in. But beyond that, that is it. Did I miss anything?
Nope, that's it. You got it.
I think that's it. That's it for episode 25. My favorite number, because it is Pikachu's Pokemon index number in the Kanto Pokedex. That is a wrap for episode 25 of the Rocket Punch Show. I'm going to try this.
Good. It feels good when you do it. Go ahead.
I can't say I have it exactly down, because mine is until next time, farewell. Yours is until next time, good night and good game.
Good job. Good job.